we're trying to do our part as a part of this to help particularly SMBs, which is small, medium-sized businesses where we live, get the technology that they need in order to continue running their business and also protect their data, during these trying times.
You're with The Capitalist Sage, a twice-a-month podcast that seeks out entrepreneurs and experts that speak to the real-world life of doing business for their sage advice. Now, with your hosts, Karl Barham and Rico Figliolini.
Hello, welcome to The Capitalist Sage podcast. We're here to bring you advice and tips from seasoned pros and experts to help you with improving your business. I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisors, and my co-host is Rico Figliolini with Mighty Rockets Digital Entertainment and the publisher of the Petrie Corners magazine. Rico, how are you doing today?
Good, Karl. Hope you're well. Hope everyone's staying socially safe.
We are adapting to the new world order and doing the best we can to help get through this. Why don't you talk today a little bit about our sponsors?
Sure. So I want to introduce one of our sponsors. A key sponsor, actually, is Hargrave Fiber. They've been a big player here in Peachtree Corners and actually in the Southeast. So they've been in a lot of different cities like Lawrenceville and through the south of Georgia as well. They provide fiber optics to the business community as well as the consumer part, but the business community is really where they're at. And as you can imagine now with everyone teleworking, this is a really big deal, which goes back to our guest today as well. But I want everyone to be aware that, visit hargravefiber.com, find out about what they can do, what services they can provide you, fiber optic services, and also about their promotion they're running right now, which is free business internet for the next 90 days. So visit hargravefiber.com/business, and you'll be able to see that and maybe take advantage of that.
Who would have thought that the investments we've made over the last 30, 40 years on fiber optics and internet capability is going to become so relevant in today? And as we're making this grand shift into a different remote technology-driven workforce in a way that we haven't seen done almost ever, I'm really glad to have today's guest, David Huseonica, is the CEO of Rojoli Services, a Petrie Corner-based IT and cloud service partner providing collaboration as well as cloud hosting, helping businesses with business continuity and office management services for both small and medium-sized business. How are you doing today, David?
I'm doing wonderful, Karl. How are you?
Great. Well, today technology is playing a place, having a role in what's going on today. In massive droves, people are moving to working at home as we are following the CDC guidelines, the government guidelines for social distancing. But I got to imagine doing that is bringing up challenges that small businesses and employees may not have thought of when they were thinking that they have to do a lot of their jobs from home. And I just wanted to spend some time exploring that with you today.
That sounds great.
So why don't you start off with just tell me a little bit about yourself and how do you get into this business?
Well, my background has been in IT and software and technology for 30 years, and really kind of where we landed in this business today is, years ago when cloud first started emerging, we really felt like it was a game changer. And it was going to redefine the way that technology is used and deployed in businesses. And so we were early adopters of trying to learn, how to leverage the technology, how to leverage it for business purposes. And, it turned out to be a great bet because here we are today where, it's almost impossible to think about, running a company and doing the things that we do without leveraging, cloud technology.
Yeah, I mean, from the starting off with basic office services, I'm seeing more business implement Internet of Things, IoT strategies. So being able to manage data flow, security, all these things is becoming a really important business consideration for a lot of folks. So maybe you could tell me a little bit of, since this has been happening, What are some of the things you're seeing your clients, small businesses, having to grapple with, and what are some of the things they're doing that are, helping them manage this situation?
Sure, sure. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to, before I get into that, I'd just like to start off by, offering my thanks and prayers to our nation's frontline workers who are essential in helping us push through this incredible situation. All of us have family and friends who, because of our needs, must continue to serve the community, and many times putting themselves in harm's way. And also like to ask everybody to pray for our nation's leaders who are having to make decisions nobody was really prepared for. The unique situation that companies are finding themselves in, of having to make that transition from work in office to 100% remote workforce in some cases has raised some pretty challenging concerns and around technology and how you use it. And I think if I had to start anywhere, I think I would probably start in the realm of security. How do you as a company ensure that the data and the identities and the information that you're needing to now access remotely, is done in a secure fashion, and that we're not compromising information. And so what we're seeing in our customers, first of all, one of our first recommendations is to enable things like multi-factor authentication. Many of us have seen that in action with commercial applications that you use, where you go to log into a site and it sends you a text message or some other form of multi-factor, and that really is probably one of the low-hanging number one recommendations we can make for people is to, if their solutions that they use for business have multi-factor capability, enable that. Make sure that is on.
Can I ask a question on that? I know on a lot of smartphones and most companies are starting to ask that. Why is that so important? What is that doing versus what people conventionally do without two-factor authorization?
Yeah. Well, the primary thing is that, it's beyond just a user ID and password, to where it's a private device that, the good news is so far that's been a protected type of setup to where, people are not able to intercept those feeds. So it's another way of authenticating who you are, that your identity is truly who you say you are. And so if multi-factor is enabled, it's going to communicate with that individual through an alternative means, and again, it just reduces the risk that anybody could access your information, your systems, without having the proper authority to do so.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Let me ask you another question as well. I've been dealing with a couple of different companies that have all sorts of things going on right now. We've had to reset passwords on emails sometimes because they're clicking on the wrong things. All of a sudden, they're getting a SharePoint email that's not really from SharePoint. They think it's a document. They think it's an ad contract, let's say, or a contract because they're salespeople. Bless you. Bless you. They're looking at, they want to get that sale. It's that type of environment. So everyone's like just clicking on things. It's just like, stop doing that. How do you deal with that? What are you seeing out in the community when it comes to sales or operations of that sort remotely?
Yeah, that's the bad actors out there are seizing this opportunity. Even in good times, they're at you all the time with these phishing emails, phishing attacks, trying to get you to click on something, and it's unfortunately it's even heightened in times like this. And so, the recommendations that we have to avoid that, first of all, if you weren't expecting that communication, then you need to double and triple verify that it's correct. And the good old fashioned techniques of picking up the phone and calling somebody to verify, hey Rico, did you just send this to me? Is really a great way of circumventing acting on something that is a scam. We get these emails all the times about, click on here to download a document or change your password.
Right.
I would say don't ever click on the links that are in the email. Go to the website. So, for instance, if a service says that your password has expired,
right,
rather than resetting it from the email, go to that service's website and log in that way and see if it needs to be reset that way.
Yeah, well, that would make sense to me, because if they're going to send you an email, you probably have notification on the site itself.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to get caught the wrong way. What about communications via like VPN versus doing it on, so some people think it's too slow working on VPN. They just take things onto their own desktop or their own laptop, and then they bring it back up into someone's server. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the workflow when it comes to that type of thing?
Having remote access to files is, vitally important for all of us in this mode. So, having a secure way of getting to those files, and there's multiple technology strategies that you can deploy to have that access. VPN access into a file server on the network, is one method. Right. In at the speed at this whole condition fell upon us, not every employee was set up for VPN access from home. Right. And so that has become, a gap that many companies have been trying to fill in. But the fundamental guidance on that is that if you can avoid downloading, modifying, and uploading, mm-hmm. it's better that way. If you have direct access to the files, either through a VPN, or if you're logging in through like an Office 365, SharePoint, OneDrive, which having two-factor enabled, right? So that you're having to do multi-factor, in order to be able to get in and access those files. That is absolutely the preferred ways of doing it versus the uploading and downloading.
You had a company that, one of the companies that I think locally here in Peachtree Corners that you helped set up their work remotely. Was there any special challenges to that? Setting people's home office infrastructure maybe up or anything along those lines?
Well, there are challenges. And, again, the speed at this came on us, not everybody was set up the same way. So, as far as home office, first of all, our recommendation is if you can avoid using your home computer to access corporate data, you should do that. And the reason being is that if it's a corporate device that you're using, chances are it's been set up a certain way. There, many IT organizations are pretty diligent in making sure that, the most up-to-date versions of all the operating systems are in play, that the most up-to-date versions of antivirus are loaded and active. And those are all things that, traditionally will take place and ahead of time. And so using a corporate device is certainly typically more secure. If you don't have that ability, then you need to consider doing those same things for your home device. Meaning, we're all guilty of it. We delay that Windows update or that Office update or that antivirus update. I'd suggest you don't do that. Go ahead and make sure everything is current. Make sure you have the latest and greatest for that, and so that will certainly go a long way in helping protecting the underlying condition of the machine.
Cool. I know a lot of people they become complacent when it comes to those types of things because corporate IT department automates so much of it. Now as we get more disconnected, and let's say someone works for a smaller company where they don't have a corporate ID, what can they do to help themselves secure their devices and computers?
Yeah, so a couple of things that we've already mentioned is, ensuring that multi-factor is enabled, whatever you're doing. Making sure that the Office, the Windows or a Mac or whatever OS is updated and is current at the current levels and all the patches are applied. Making sure that the network, the wireless that you're accessing is a secure wireless network that requires secure authorization to get to it.
Can I ask on that point, for example? That's one of the areas where most people on their home network, they get it installed, and I don't know that they've checked it. What can they look for to know that their home? What would you look for to check if a home network was secure?
Yeah, so the signal that you'll receive will indicate whether or not it's things like WAP or WEP or enabled, which means that you have security turned on for that connection, and in making sure that you've got a strong password if you're going to get onto the wireless. Don't let it be your phone number. Don't let it be other things that are easily determined by people outside of your home office, so your neighbors or, literally somebody's parked on the street in front of your home could potentially jump on your Wi-Fi network and get access to, any other device that happens to be on that, including the one that you're on. So, and each of the wireless systems have slightly different things as far as how you configure it, but just making sure that it's a secure, password protected connection that you're accessing.
I've got a follow-on question along that line. As many, especially smaller business freelancers, they use a lot of cloud sharing devices. You've got Google Drive, Dropbox, all these different brands. Are those okay for folks to use for securing documents? And I know there's different layers of security. Or what are some things they should be particularly cautious about when using those?
Well, again, secure file share and access to files remotely is vitally important. And there's a number of different brands out there. There's some of the ones that you mentioned, are very good solutions. We're a very strong proponent of Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and on OneDrive, just because it's the security around that has evolved to be where it is enterprise grade security that they have surrounding those. Not that those other solutions don't have some levels of security, but what I would suggest is that is come up with a standard for the organization. I would say, you'd be much better off as an organization in the mode that we're in today of saying, hey, for our remote files access or sharing, if you don't have another solutions, we're gonna standardize on X, and we want everybody to use X, because whenever you have 2, 3, 4 different applications that are being used by employees, first of all, ensuring the consistency of the security around those is very difficult, and also ensuring that corporate data is not being shared to people outside of the business in a fashion that's going to violate corporate standards or compliance standards. So by settling on a single platform, that will help you ensure that there is some levels of control, because then you can begin to build in things like role-based permissions. So if you and I, we might have access to the same SharePoint site, for instance, but we are able to control that the files that you can access versus what I can access based on our role in the company. And that certainly, goes a long ways in helping making sure that, people aren't themselves viewing or sharing, to outside people information that should not be shared.
Well, if I could shift a little bit and just start understanding more, if you were to help someone, and I know many friends have set up home offices, when you start thinking about hardware and infrastructure and doing that and some of the things that you've seen people utilize effectively, are there things that you'd recommend for someone to make sure they put in place?
So, hardware, there's a lot of great brands of hardware. I would certainly stick with some of the better known brands from a hardware standpoint. From a configuration standpoint, if you're able to, for instance, my machine here, I'm home office, but, I'm not on my Wi-Fi. I'm directly connected into my router via cable. So even, you do have the ability to do things linked up, via cable versus always Wi-Fi. And so that would be something to consider. And a lot of times it has to do with, where is the router coming into your home office located in comparison to where your computer is. But
can I ask you a question along that?
Yeah.
So you just described something. I remember when Wi-Fi wasn't as prevalent as it is today, and people would have direct Cat5 cable into their server. Is that a more secure method? If you are really concerned, you're a financial professional or healthcare, and you have some really high level, it would be in hardware to allow you to direct line into your server be a worthwhile consideration?
Absolutely. It just takes one more layer out of the equation of how what data is flowing through, and so if you're not having everything is not going through your home office Wi-Fi, which again can be potentially hacked, if people have the credentials or are sitting outside or other things, it just removes another layer from the equation.
Okay. How are you dealing with clients also that have to do like real-time collaboration? Dealing with, you have people out there on Zoom. I mean, that's not the only product you can use. Obviously, we're using something else. Mm-hmm. Although this is not meant for that type of collaboration. This is meant more for broadcast. But how are you dealing with that? I mean, are you finding it easier for people to deal with it? Are you finding it becoming something that may become the norm after this?
I think there's some silver lining to this dark cloud, is that some of the processes that we're having to use today will have real benefits long term. You had mentioned one of our clients that we've helped enable from a remote workforce standpoint. This is a software development company that was high on collaboration. I mean, literally they were doing huddle meetings, all day long, looking at code together, having meetings on site and with remote personnel. And so that's a scenario where we were able to deploy with them a product. And this is, again, the Microsoft solution, Microsoft Teams, which includes all the tools under one platform that allows them to do that. So they can do, chats, real-time chats back and forth. You can do voice calls between each other. You can do video conferencing like we're doing here. It has file sharing, secure file sharing, so you can store your files and have access to it. And you can, do all the things that a highly collaborative environment really needs, and you get it all underneath one brand or one label. And, I'm not saying that's the only one out there. I'm just saying that is one that we have deployed not only for those folks, but time and time again. We have, I think across the board, we've got about 175 companies that we work with, customers. And I'd say 75% of them, 80% of them have deployed a solution like that. And the good news is many of them that were already, somewhere down that road before this hit, which gave them really a leg up in being able to respond to this as quick as possible.
So I have an interesting insight in that I worked for a lot of years in large corporations, and so Microsoft Teams and some of these tools and available. When I talk to small business owners, a lot less of them are familiar. So you've used a couple of terms. Can you describe, for instance, what would be in the tool belt of someone new to collaboration that might be there? So like the example, what exactly is Microsoft Teams and what does that do? And are there one or two other tools like that you think people may want to get familiar with?
Yeah, so what Microsoft Teams is really Microsoft's collaboration. It's a platform that is comprised of multiple pieces, multiple solutions. So, it allows you and I right now, even though we're looking at each other through the video, we could be chatting with each other offline. So and that's great for if I just need an answer from Rico. I don't want to necessarily have to call him or wait for an email response. I can see that Rico's online. I can ask the question, get an answer right away. So that real-time chat capability is
that kind of like texting for somebody that would be used for immediate response you throw out a question and anyone on that chat can respond back quickly.
Exactly. So you could do one-on-one, you could have groups. And so a way of, again, collaborating, getting real, answers very quickly versus having to, in an email mode, you send it, but you don't know if the person's there or not. And this gives you that presence capability.
I want to ask you something because I work here, my teleworking out of my own office. My dining room is right there. My son, my high school kid, is on a dining room table with his laptop doing his work. And I feel like we're all in a big fraternity house or something, all at home doing work. But when I pass by his laptop sometimes and I talk to him about what he's doing, I see this younger generation. Not only is he doing the digital learning in their portal environment, but he also has Discord open, which is one of these chat type places, right? That you communicate with your friends. It's mainly used for gaming and other things. Do you find any intergenerational or generational issues with people getting online and being able to do the work? Do you see any challenges there from your point of view?
Well, the younger generation, the millennials and around the millennial, I mean, they certainly are more adept to these types of tools than maybe some of us older folks are. I put myself in the older folks category. So yeah, it really is something they grew up with. It's something, my parents now are finally texting, but it's, here we are in year 2020 and, it's taken a long time for them to get to that point. So, the younger generation grew up in a fashion where they've had these immediate communication protocols that they've been able to leverage, whether it's be texting or chatting. And, a lot of this did come out of the gaming environment to where,
right.
They did this way before businesses, really adopted these solutions. And,
and I see it creeping into business sometimes too, because some younger employees don't want to be on the video camera. They'd rather just be, do the audio. But of course the upper management wants to see everyone on video because it's one way of keeping in touch and one-on-one and all that.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely some value in doing that. I mean, like for instance, in our company, we have a daily all hands meeting. Okay. And when this all came about, we would all be in a conference room together looking at each other. And then all of a sudden, this cloud came over us and now, we began those where we were just, voice only, but we began to turn on our videos too as a way of, particularly in the mode that we're in, giving people that extra, social capability of, I can show you something in my office if I need to, or pick up a, so, I think that's good. And the good news is these platforms like, Microsoft Teams, and there's others, they allow you that extended level of collaboration. It could go from chat to voice to video to, you and I can be, sharing a document right now and both of us working on that exact same document at the exact same time versus me having to, do my work and then say, okay, Rico, take it over. It's yours now. And then you have to do your work and then we have to figure out who did what. So, right. These platforms have really accelerated that whole collaboration and it gives you options as to what's the best way to do it for that need and that team.
So we got a couple of others. You've mentioned and discussed chat as a tool. You talked about file sharing, and in that example with Rico, where you could do live updates or more than one person could do that. What's the tool that facilitates that kind of file sharing?
Yeah, so that kind of file sharing is baked into SharePoint and OneDrive as an example. And the term for that is co-authoring. And so when you look at, being remote, trying to work with multiple people at the same time, that's a feature that, whatever platform you go to, you should probably consider, does it have that co-authoring capability? So, and what that does is it basically gets you out of this serial mode where, I've got to do my work and then you can do your work. And then Alice can do her work. And so, this allows all three of us to be in the exact same document. So we could have a Word document, Excel sheet, open at the same time, and I could see where you're working. And as you're typing and you're making updates, those would show up on mine, and I'm working in a different area of the document or the different part of the Excel sheet. So, it just greatly enhances that whole collaboration experience.
So I've got the two. Is this video collaboration? I've seen more Skype, Zoom, GoToMeetings, all of these platforms people using, some well, some not so well. Tell me a little bit about platforms for that and some things that people can do to use those effectively. What's the use case for that?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of good ones that are out there. The ones that you mentioned, have strong followings. Again, Microsoft Teams has that built into it, so that's the one that we standardize on. But the most important thing, I believe, is that people have to get comfortable with how to use the tool. There might have been 10%, for instance, of the company prior to a month ago that ever started and managed a video meeting, webcast meeting, screen share, chat, voice, video. Maybe 10%. Now that 10% has gone to maybe 75% of your company needs to know how to do that. And so that other percentage needs to be trained, or maybe people need to be retrained in actually how to use it effectively. And so that they are, able to conduct the meetings and collaborate the way that you want them to.
So there's a secondary on that, follow on that. So in the video, I've noticed people struggling with video that's doing a lot of demand on bandwidth versus they might have done before. Are there tips and things that people can do to be able to conduct more of these meetings? Imagine 4 people in a household all doing a video meeting today because the husband, the wife, and both kids are all on some form of video. What can you do, or what are some of the tips you might have for someone to be able to manage that? Or should they all be on it? Should they change different resolutions? Any thoughts?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the bandwidth, with starting from the street coming into the house. So depending on the carrier that you have, you might have certain bandwidth that you've signed up for. Whether it be Hargrave, or whether it be a Comcast or something like that. So, that will certainly impact how many of those types of things you're able to do concurrently. Then you have, capability within the 4 walls, such as, your Wi-Fi and the type of, bandwidth that has and capability. You need to people need to have diligence. As a matter of fact, before this call, my daughter's upstairs doing her homework, which has a lot of video. And so I just asked her, I said, hey, I'm going to be on an important meeting here. Can you just hold off streaming for a little bit in the event that it does collide? But, the reality is you're probably not going to know if 4 people can do it at once until you try it once or twice. And you may want to try that in a mode to where it's not going to disrupt, the other people, and which is one of the advices we give people is that, hey, if you're going to start using things like web conferencing and video conferencing and all that, is try it out ahead of time. Get on it, get somebody comfortable, a friend, a family member, with you. Make sure that the quality is there, because you might have to make some adjustments either for your own home office technology, or you may need to call your provider and say, hey, I need to go from 100 meg to a gig type of bandwidth.
It's interesting because your Zoom, for example, is throttling a little bit on how they are streaming the video too. So depending on your membership with them or your package with them, you might be only doing it at 760 or something like that versus something higher. I don't know about you all, but like, for example, in my house, I think we have a 250 package. It's like whatever the fastest package is we have. And I have 4 or 5 people online all the time doing stuff. And, Yesterday, 2,500 people through Comcast Xfinity went out, and we were out for an hour and a half. So everyone comes down to see me to say, because I'm the IT guy, to say, what's going on? And I'm like, it's out, 2,500 people in Peachtree Corners. There's a spot somewhere, shows it on the map. Mm-hmm. But everyone has the data plan we have on our tablets and the cell phones.
Yeah.
Hotspot it. That's what we did for that hour and a half. We hotspotted the stuff. Granted, some of it could be low bandwidth, but there's ways around some of that, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rico. And, having an alternative, is certainly something I always want to, keep in the back of your mind is that, what if this does break down? What am I going to do next?
Right.
It was just like in the old days, whenever you're doing, and many people on this call probably don't remember, but you had the projector where you put the transparency on,
right.
in the meetings, and so, okay, what if the bulb on that projector went out during your meeting? How are you going to continue? So, well, that's where you say, well, I also brought a hard copy that we can all pass around and go off of, so they're thinking through it a little bit certainly helps in making sure that we're.
There's one thing along that line, just the difference between how much data video uses versus audio.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if everyone is streaming Netflix, running meetings, video meetings, there might be times where the right application is just an audio.
Yeah.
But you can be lulled into videoing everything, and you're throttling bandwidth when, for a period of time, you might say, look, maybe you go on audio only and you stop streaming the video. And then, if you have a bandwidth problem, you can toggle some of that stuff.
Yeah. That's right. And, some of these tools do have the ability to where you can choose to accept video as well as broadcast video. So, and you can either or those. So, being mindful that, video is going to eat more bandwidth. There's just no two ways about it. And
you also mentioned different plans. So I'm not familiar with all of them in particular, but, the Giga and how much bandwidth in this next 60-day period with all the homeschooling and other things that are going on, what types of bandwidth do you think people would be safe with if they had, just so they have an idea if they're way below and they may need to be talking with their providers?
Yeah. Each case is going to be different, but I would say as much as you can get is the easy answer, but, what we did personally in our house is we were, I think, at about a 200 meg type of plan with our provider, and knowing that we're all going to be here, and also I did some other things with moving over to streaming TV. We just said we're going to go up to a gig bandwidth, and in the increase in cost, while money is certainly important, it was surprisingly inexpensive to make the jump, and so thinking about what is the alternative of spending an extra $20 a month for this is the fact that my productivity, and I can't do the meetings, I can't do all the work. It seems like a pretty good trade-off. And again, I'm not minimizing that. Money's important, but so is productivity in these days. So sometimes you have to sacrifice a little bit for the higher productivity.
And then I know that there's a lot more we can talk about, and just wanted to ask if people, had questions and wanted to reach out to you and your company, how would people get in contact with you?
Yeah. So again, we're located right here in Peachtree Corners in Technology Park, and specifically, if you heard of Curiosity Labs, we're one of the tenants in that building. We have, obviously website, www.rojoli.com. And, our phone number and everything is listed on there, or you can just contact us at sales@rojoli.com. And I'll just also make mention, with the times that we have today, in the situation going on, we have come up with some what we're calling them is COVID-19 IT relief packages, which are services that organizations are faced with right now that they need to adopt, and they need to do it as cost effectively as possible. So we're offering a number of different free services, such as migrations to Office 365 for people who need to take advantage of that platform and Teams, and disaster recovery solutions, and some other things. So we're trying to do our part as a part of this to help particularly SMBs, which is small, medium-sized businesses where we live, get the technology that they need in order to continue running their business and also protect their data, during these trying times.
Well, I really want to thank you so much for spending some time with us, because I know people are talking about relief packages and people are talking about testing and social distancing, but this behavior shift that's happening across industry, where people are now working more remotely, will start to unveil opportunities for people to do bad things over computers and network. And just starting to think about it and make sure you harden yourself is really important. Ability tools that you outline, chat features, file share features, video software, etc., are new tools that we all can start using to maintain productivity at home. And in a lot of cases, this is now how our kids are learning for a few more months. So becoming familiar and comfortable with that is going to be really important as we navigate ourselves through this pandemic. So we would like to thank David for joining us today and talking about this. And we do definitely recommend people take advantage of some of the offers his company is doing. Rojoli Services is right here in Peachtree Corners. We're trying to help each other. Businesses are stepping up to provide the tools for people to be successful through this. And I want to thank you and what your whole team is doing to help with that.
Well, thank you for having me on today, and looking forward to the other side of all this for everybody. Thank you.
Amen to that. Well, we want to thank, again, the community for doing everything they're doing. Rico, I'd say social distancing is being taken serious here in our local communities. If you go about, you see people taking it serious, and everyone that's doing that is helping to make this go quicker and save lives. So we appreciate that, and the sooner we can get this under control and get back to our normal activities, play and work, the better. Also wanted to just mention we're going to continue to do our podcast. We have guests that's coming in, and hopefully this format is working, but you could hear us on streaming on your local streaming service, the Capitalist Sage podcast, as well as we do post this live on Facebook.
Yes.
And where would they find us online, Rico?
Sure. So go to livinginpeachtreecorners.com. You can also find the podcasts. If you go to Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, SoundCloud, any of those platforms, just Google or just search for Capitalist Sage, and you'll see the podcast there. Even if you Google Capitalist Sage, you'll see it online. It's on YouTube. So this video will be on YouTube as well. So any of those places you can find it.
Awesome. Well, I'm Karl Barham with Transworld Business Advisors of Atlanta Peachtree. Our business advisors are available to help people navigate through this. We help people with buying and selling businesses, advising them how to increase value, and in this time, just making sure they're able to survive through this, if not thrive in the future. And Rico, I know we have some stuff coming out soon.
Sure. In fact, I should say that in the next 4 or 5 minutes, I have another podcast we're doing, Peachtree Corners Life, and I'll have the head of school for Wesleyan with me. We're going to be talking about distance learning and going through that. So we'll be sharing this podcast space shortly with that. So, but this hit the mailboxes, or will hit the mailboxes today and tomorrow. Peachtree Corners Magazine. You'll find 21 different restaurants you can do your orders from for go-to or curbside pickup. stories on digital learning, local schools, stories on faith, how the churches are reaching out to the communities online through Zoom and other avenues, and a whole bunch of things like that. As well, if you need any services when it comes to content marketing or podcast production or anything along those lines, Mighty Rockets is my company, and you're more than welcome to contact me, Rico, R-I-C-O, at mightyrockets.com.
Thank you again for everyone for tuning in. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
This has been The Capitalist Sage with Karl Barham and Rico Figliolini, the twice-a-month podcast with entrepreneurs and business experts. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Want more? Visit our website at capitalistsagepodcast.com.